there are these societal pressures, right, of being in your 20s. Oh, it's the best years of your life. That's what people always say. Well, if it's the best years of my life, am I supposed to know that it's the best years of my life, or am I supposed to just act like it's not? What if I don't think it actually is? What if it's actually not? The problem is there's so much advice out here on how to live, but there's not really practical advice on how to go about living in your 20s. The ongoing existential crisis of being in your 20s. It's a topic that I've spoken about with friends, and as I continue throughout my 20s at 24 years old, there's a lot of pressures, right? Like, there's a lot of pressures of being in your 20s because on one hand, you're supposed to figure it out and try new things, and then on the other hand, you're supposed to have it all figured out and get a full-time job and enjoy your life and don't question it. And we're in a society now where we have the internet and we have this culture of going out and doing your own thing and creating your own thing online. It doesn't even have to be online. I have many friends who have physical businesses, whether it's landscaping or welding or you name it. But there's also this insurgence or resurgence of independence and entrepreneurship that is sweeping throughout people in their 20s and even people in their teens too. I mean, if you wanted to know how to blow up on TikTok, you'd probably be taking advice from somebody who's 16 years old, probably not 28. And it's just crazy to think that there are these societal pressures, right, of being in your 20s. Oh, it's the best years of your life. That's what people always say. Well, if it's the best years of my life, am I supposed to know that it's the best years of my life, or am I supposed to just act like it's not? What if I don't think it actually is? What if it's actually not? The problem is there's so much advice out here on how to live, but there's not really practical advice on how to go about living in your 20s. How do you balance drinking on the weekends, but not too much, smoking weed, getting high, enjoying a movie, but not all day, every day, pursuing your goals and your dreams and your passions, but also enjoying your 20s and becoming a success for maybe somebody else or your parents, but also not forgetting the fact that you were 18 not too many years ago. I think this pressure is coming down the line. And what I mean is it's a pressure that was evident in your 30s where it's like, yeah, figure it out by your 30s, whatever, you're fine. Now it's like, figure it out by 17. And when we were in high school, it was completely normal to have a college picked out and almost have a career picked out. But there are so many examples in life of people who haven't figured it out or didn't figure it out until they were 30, 40, or even 50, even maybe 60.
If you're sitting and watching right now and you're 28 and you don't have shit, and
the fact that you can live out your 20s now is really because of people didn't live out their 20s before. Our grandparents, if you're in the States, they were grinding. They had a family by 21. They didn't have the opportunity. They didn't have all of the possibilities. The pressure came from inside the home. It came from parents, and it was non-negotiable. And now it is negotiable. I went online, created an online business at 21, figured, let me at least try it. And 3 years later, I'm still at it. I'm not a multi-millionaire. I'm not a, extreme success, but I figured something out. I tapped into a vein and I just kept doing it day in and day out and day in and day out and day in and day out. And I didn't have to go get a job like my friends. If you're 25 right now, you have a few friends who are doing an online business. You have a few people that you know that are at the same job they were when they were 17. You have a few who are out or running physical businesses, right? Like I mentioned, like a landscaper or a welder or something like that. You have friends who are in corporate who are jocking a desk in a cubicle all day, but they're making 6 figs and they're smoking fancy cigars on the weekends and driving around in BMW. And if you own a BMW before you're 38, you suck. But anyway, you have all these different type of people in your life, right? And you're 24, you're 26, you're 28, you're 21. all of these examples are around you, and you're trying to figure out which one. Do I have to pick one of these? Am I going on my own path? I don't want to be the desk jockey snorting Adderalls and, smoking fancy cigars on the weekend and as a flex, but I also don't want to be working at the same Italian restaurant that I did when I was 16. So how do you find your balance? How do you find in your 20s, how do you find your own way? The answer is you have to figure it out for yourself. How do you do that? You need to identify and actually decide, which I do think this is a problem with people in their 20s, is that they don't decide to decide. They don't make a decision on what to do. They just do the next thing. They just take the next opportunity. They've never went out to seek opportunities. They've just always taken, because that's what our life is set up to do. We are set up in life, especially in America, to just do the next thing. It's all a path. It's all a course. Everybody's taken it before. It's paved out for you. That's what we're meant to do. So then when it gets to the point where you finally have to make a decision, where somebody chose your school and chose your home and chose your food and chose your college and chose your friends, now you have to make a choice. Now you have to make a decision, right? And that's difficult. That's difficult to do because you've never done it before. You're not used to it. So what is something practical that you can do? It's get better at decision making. How do you do that? You just make more decisions. You make more large decisions in your life. That's what gets you better at making decisions. I wouldn't use an online guru. I wouldn't use a course. Maybe books could help. Maybe friends can help. But I would begin to cultivate this inherent independence. I would cultivate a level of independence where I know that I can pay my bills. I know that I can pay my insurance. I know that I can have just enough food to get by. I would have all of that figured out for myself. I would have a fail-safe. I would have skills that always make me money. Okay? And the number one skill that will always make you money, which is every single business book has said it, and I'm going to say it just because it's true. I think there's caveats, but it's sales, right? Anybody who can sell something can make money because there's people who can't sell and they will pay you to sell, right? So full stop, that's the best skill. I think it's the least, if you spent 20 hours learning sales, you'd be good in sales for the rest of your life. If you just did the first 20 hours. Let's come back here. We just went off on a little tangent. We're in our 20s. We're trying to figure it out. We don't want to get caught up with online gurus. We don't want to necessarily do what our best friend's doing. And we want to kind of carve a path for ourselves. And what that looks like is honing in on decision making and figuring out how can we make our own decisions regardless of anybody else. And but we can't make the decisions until we have the opportunities. So how do we generate and create opportunities? We have to learn how to sell. Why? Because we have to sell ourselves to other people. And so that seems to me like the most important variable here is the fact that you need to have this inherent independence. If you're in your 20s, you need to have an independence and a confidence about yourself. And then you have to match that with an actual skill. If you have a self-independence and a confidence and the ability to explain and sell yourself, now somebody else is finally able to believe in you. And they will actually take you under their wing and they will help you. The next level from where you're at with no skills, lack of confidence, not knowing what to do, not able to pay your bills on your own without the shitty job, if that's you, the next level of this is the confidence, the independence, learning the first skill, could be sales, could be marketing, could be anything, having confidence in that, and then finding somebody who's further along in the journey than you, deciding that that's the journey you're ready to take, maybe for the next 1, 3, 5, or 7 years, and then not convincing, but presenting your skills and them believing in you and then helping you along the path. That has happened to me many times. First with a friend named Beej Links. He's a music producer. He's an artist. He's an incredible person. And he took myself and my friends under his wing, and he told us not what we wanted to hear, but what we needed to hear, which is, hey, you're actually not that good. Then I had another mentor named Tyler, who I was under his wing working in his music studio for free, just observing and asking questions, right? And he taught me the power of observation, and also the fact, minus the hard skills, of just being in the right room, right? So that's what that mentorship told me. Then I had another mentorship where I worked at a startup marketing company, and I was also a fly on the wall, but I was also a podcast producer. And this was my first real job as a podcast producer still in college. That was my first time really stepping up. I learned from that the power of relationships, the power of sales, and the power of marketing to create something on your own. So I had these 3 mentors, these 3 apprenticeships, right? But only because each of these people were willing to believe in me. To begin with, they didn't know. They had no idea what I was going to do. They didn't know what I would amount to. They barely knew what I was capable of. And I didn't either. But I came to them with really a no strings attached approach, and they believed in me. So let's run it back real quick before we wrap this up. If you're in your 20s right now, you have a decision to make. You need to decide to decide. And you need to decide to do something for the next 1, 3, 5, or 7 years that will allow you to build the confidence and the skills to be able to sell yourself for somebody else to believe in you. Where does that start? That starts probably with something like an apprenticeship and explaining to somebody, hey, I don't know much about this, but maybe I'm passionate about it. Maybe I just think I like it. And I'm willing to put in the work for you so you can teach me and take me under your wing. The solution to the existential crisis of your 20s isn't reading more books and watching more fucking podcasts. It's going out there and actually doing. It's actually working. It's actually doing something you've never done before. It's actually somebody believing in you and you stepping up to the plate and having a real job and having real responsibilities and struggling to even feed yourself or know where your next rent check is coming from, because you're taking a risk right now. That is what I see as the solution to the existential crisis of your 20s. I think it's work. I think it's 100% work, and it's 100% risk and taking chances. And that comes from having a skill, whether it's sales, marketing, tiles, whatever, you name it. Somebody else believing in you just enough for them to take them under your wing. And then you showing them what you're made of. And that would be my completely unsolicited advice to solving the existential crisis in your 20s. Because if you are confused what to do in your 20s, it's because you are not doing anything. So figure out what to do, make a decision, and go and do it. All right. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. I really enjoy making these solo videos. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just sit down and see what comes out. Some are more planned, some are less planned. The only way this grows is if you share it. So if you know somebody who's having some kind of 20s realizations right now, please text them this. Please put it on your social media and just tag me. We'll shout you out. We'll even shout you out in an episode. I appreciate everybody who shares the show. And make sure if you have any questions or need any help at all with anything, just send me a direct message. I may not get to it right away, but I always get to all of my messages. So thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it, to another Bop Solo, and hope to lend a hand, even if to move the needle 1%, because we're all going through this right now, all going through the same thing, trying to figure it out. So, all right, Bop out. I'll catch you soon.